Welcome back to part 2 of our discussion on body cavities. In part 1 we were looking at ventral body cavities, which include organs known as viscera. Keep in mind, viscera were capable of changing size and shape and moving, and were protected by a serous membrane. And the name of the serous membrane, it varied depending on which body cavity they were located in. In this part, we're going to be looking at dorsal body cavities, which are slightly different than the ventral body cavities. Namely in that these are protected by bone. So these would include organs that we do not want moving. So they're able to move and change, but we don't want them to do so most of the time. These would be organs of the central nervous system, such as the brain and spinal cord. The brain, it does move around a little bit, but when it moves around too much, that would be what is known as a concussion or some form of brain damage. And the spinal cord as well, we don't really want that moving, but it is capable of moving, like when we bend over and touch our toes. So it is flexible, but it doesn't move, so to speak, like our heart does or lungs do, or any of our other visceral organs in our abdominal pelvic cavity. So looking at the cranial cavity, the first of the two dorsal body cavities, its job is to protect the brain. So it is hollow in here. We can see the back wall of the bone over here. But also look up in the front part where there's the face. There's bones up here. These bones do not come into contact with or protect the brain in any way, shape, or form. That conversation will arise again when we get to the skeletal system. But within the face, there are other smaller cavities that we're going to touch base on really quick. You do have this image. You're going to want to label some of these. Namely our sinuses, which are a couple pairs of them. We have our frontal sinus and our sphenoidal sinus. We'll be talking about sinuses and their function when we start moving on in the class. We have our orbital cavities. They enclose our eyes, protected by bone. Our nasal cavity, which is a hollow point in our nose. Our oral cavity, which is our mouth. It is hollow when we open it up. And our middle ear cavity, which protects our middle ear bones deep within our skull. And our last body cavity that we're going to be talking about is the vertebral cavity, which is also known as the vertebral canal or the spinal cavity, all the same thing. And its job is to protect the spinal